Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? So I just saw an interesting debate on CNBC about the greatest risk to the stock market. And this is at when the Nasdaq's at or near an all-time high. Last I checked, the S&P is within 1% of an all-time high. So I thought this was an interesting discussion, and it actually went in a direction that maybe I wasn't expecting. And that's good, right? That's good when it goes that direction. And really it boils down to it's the underlying structure of the companies, not kind of headline ratings. So let's walk that back. So we've talked a lot about on this channel here recently a couple of things. First, what at least I'm calling the next Cold War. China-US relations are going from bad to worse. Look at what's going on with TikTok and WeChat as just an example of escalating issues. You have what's going on that we talked about this morning, that arrest in Hong Kong. There's just the Chinese and the US relationships are not going to be very good for the next several years and arguably next decade. But not a great threat. There will be individual company risks for certain. There was a lot of talk about some companies that could potentially be harmed if the escalation ratchets up to the next level. All true, but not really market concerns. Individual stocks, sure, but not market. Then there was talk about what's going on in Washington, D.C. and the dysfunction and us and them and reds and blues and all of that going on as well. And while there are some short-term risks and some headline risk, not a lot of stock market risk if you are listening to the talking heads on TV. So when you boil down to what they were concerned about, and this is specifically El-Erian, I never pronounce his name very well, but he was talking about its corporate bankruptcies, right? There was a lot of talk about the Fed doing an admirable job coming in quickly and providing liquidity. Both the Fed and frankly the market, for companies that were in trouble, that saw drastic demand drop, i.e. airlines, cruise lines, retail, the like. If you were credit worthy, you were able to raise funds and move forward. He was kind of highlighting that the next step is, now that these companies are ongoing, has their business structurally changed, where maybe they were set up to operate in an environment that is not going to come back. Airlines being the greatest example. They were built to service a number of flights and capacity, and maybe that capacity doesn't come back. Do we need as many airlines? Do we need as many airplanes? And then maybe do we need as many airlines? So a lot of discussion around corporate bankruptcies. And while the Fed can provide liquidity, the Fed does not help insolvency. And plenty of companies have taken on more debt, raising the concern of insolvency, especially if the business environment has changed. So when you look at the stock market and you're looking at maybe some companies that are down and trading off of their highs, we've really got to look at the structural change. Has demand changed? Has their consumer base changed? What are we see going on? For me, a real estate channel, this is just being highlighted again, kind of the big cities versus the suburbs. For example, Las Vegas setting another record according to Brian Lebo, 328, after breaking the 2006 record last month at 325. In Fresno, 1 month supply. My new feeling about multifamily in the suburbs. The environment is changing. And if you're using rules to evaluate companies that were pre-health event, I think it's time to look at that again. Because there will be some companies that go bankrupt even after this event. So that was really a discussion. I thought it was interesting. I thought that the talking heads were just going to talk about, oh, it's the US-China Cold War, or, oh, by the way, it's the nonsense in DC. But no, they're actually looking at the balance sheets of companies, trying to evaluate free cash flow from operations. And there's some risk. And I thought that was an interesting conversation. So that's what I was looking for. Makes total sense, right? An accountant, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, very important, becoming more important. And I appreciated that conversation. So I just wanted to share that with you. Have a wonderful day. Take care.